From ghost girls to aliens, Grand Theft Auto is full of spooky and creepy things, but when fans get a hold of them is when they really get freaky. Greetings gamers and welcome back to Top 10 Gaming. I'm your host Carl Monroe and one of these is mine. These being the top 10 scary Grand Theft Auto 5 creepypastas. If you're new here, hit like and subscribe because this script is really long and I have to edit the whole thing by 3 p.m. So let's roll the intro. And attend the mysterious car. I was messing around playing as Trevor, constantly dying as one does, but eventually I spawned at a hospital at night. I ran around, but I quickly noticed that there were no cars on the road, anywhere. After around 10 minutes I saw one car when I looked down a road, but nobody was driving it. This sometimes happens in game, but this time I couldn't steal the car, it just stood there, like it was staring at me. I started to walk away, but after around 20 seconds the car had vanished. There weren't any other cars on the road. At this point I turned off my console and restarted the game. When I loaded back in, I was on the middle of the highway at night with no cars around. After a couple of seconds, that same car from earlier came flying in and killed me instantly. When I respawned, I was at the top of Mount Chiliad and the car was there again. It came at me, but I managed to dodge, as it flew past me and went off a cliff, but as I watched it fall, it disappeared. It came back at me from behind and killed me instantaneously this time. However, my game crashed. I deleted the game off my console and reinstalled it, and luckily this hasn't happened again, and hopefully it will stay like that. And at 9, I never finished GTA 5 Part 1. GTA 5 took my legs. I'm in a wheelchair for life now, but I wasn't before the events I'm about to tell you. I used to play GTA 5 uncontrollably. I wouldn't really play the story because I just enjoyed exploring the world and wreaking havoc. I was driving around the mountains of Tongva Hills when I spotted a woman. She was no typical woman of the game, and I am sure I have never seen her before. She was way more realistic than anything else in GTA 5. I mean, really realistic. Her face was so detailed it looked like photography. Her face was pale and her eyes were big and black. Her hair was long and it was pitch black. It looked as if she had never been washed. She was wearing a long red dress with marks of dirt on it. First she triggered my curiosity, so I drove closer. I shouldn't have driven closer. I wasn't freaked out until she raised her hand and she said hello. Both her voice and her face were way too realistic for this game. I reacted to this by hitting her with my car, which knocked her over. I guess trying to kill it is a pretty common solution for everything in GTA. She had been knocked over by my car, so I drove over her legs so that she would stay on the ground. I shouldn't have done that. I really shouldn't have done that. It sounded nothing like any of the typical screams from GTA or any other game whatsoever. Her screams were so terrifying that I cringed my toes and my heart started beating way faster. And at 8, I never finished GTA 5 Part 2. She started crawling towards me, while staring right into my eyes with a horrific grin. Her grin was still wide, reaching from ear to ear. Her eyes were bigger and blacker than before. Her mouth had opened with blood coming out of it. "Alex," she said in a deep voice with the blood of her mouth making bubbles. She crawled faster, with determination. She was heading for me, not my GTA character. She was heading right towards the screen, and she knew my name. I noticed that I was sweating rapidly, and I shouldn't have driven over her legs. I almost jumped from shock when I heard my grandmother ringing her bell. Eased to get out of my room, I walked slowly towards the living room where my grandmother watched TV. For every step I took, I kept listening for any abnormal sounds. My grandmother then rang her bell again. When I reached the living room, I stopped in the doorway. My grandmother's wheelchair was standing in front of the TV with its back towards me. "Hey Grandma, did you call?" I said in a hoarse voice. The wheelchair started turning slowly towards me. Then I noticed my grandmother's gray hair was pitch black and looked unwashed. While the wheelchair was turning towards me, I could hear the haunting sounds of crushed legs being dragged over the floor from the wheelchair. The pale woman in the wheelchair looked at me with big black eyes and a grin full of blood and said, "Why did you do that, Alex?" I really shouldn't have driven over her legs. Number 7, that just happened. So I'm playing GTA just now and I decided to parachute off of a Learjet to the Grove Street garage. I go in, take a look at my JB700/DB5 and the cheetah and decided to take my trans arm ruiner. I get in, Franklin turns on the car, and the game goes to the black loading screen. Suddenly, it shows Franklin with a few gunshot wounds in his chest, laying on the floor outside of a hospital, just randomly, like in a dream sequence. I let the game play out for a few moments, then it shows Franklin walking out of the hospital, and then the game takes $5 grand for medical bills. I know it's likely a one-off bug that I doubt anyone else has experienced, but it happened. Also, the game sorta seems dimmer, as if it has the wasted blurring or shading effect. And because it's not a creepypasta story without the Lavender Town music, that just came over the radio just as this car turned on. Just got back to the garage and the private jet that I bailed out of is in the parking lot just outside of it. Blown up, of course, and the car had been taken from the garage. And at 6, Franklin the schizophrenic. Franklin lived drugged with pills in a psychiatric hospital, and in reality he was very troubled. He lived in his mind, surrounded by things that didn't really exist, like his friend Lamar. Lamar would show Franklin how to survive the hood. He worked with Franklin and showed him the ropes of repossessing cars. Things can get really out of hand for both Franklin and Lamar. The two get into trouble on a regular basis, but none of this is real. It's all in Franklin's head, but he doesn't know that. But I guess neither do we. We play in that world that Franklin lives in. Does that mean that we suffer from the same things? Are we Franklin, and is Franklin us? Oh, hold on, Lamar's calling me. This one was on Wattpad in Spanish, okay? The translation wasn't the best, so I worked with what I had, okay? Cut me some slack, damn it. Halfway through number 5, Gray Ice. While getting 100% completion in the game can get you access to some glorious UFOs, you can start getting a handle on the truth that's out there as early as a tutorial mission. If you go off course during the game's opening and drive out onto the frozen river of North Yankton, there is a particular spot where the player can spy one of the game's alien models trapped underneath the ice with his arms outstretched. There's no explanation for the body and no context. The origins of the alien remain completely unexplored. While it's relatively disturbing to start the game walking over the corpse of a dead alien, it's also an assumed statement of purpose from the game's designers. Sure, they're telling this grown-up story about criminal partnerships, betrayal, and redemption, but you don't have to take it all that seriously. Or do you? The human drama is just a small part of this weird world, and where is it going to go next? And at 4, the Banshee. I've been hearing screams. I walk around going about my day, and I get a sharp pain in my head, like the worst headache imaginable, and then they add screeching. It makes it impossible for me to move, it hurts so bad, like someone is screaming in my ear. Sometimes it gets a little quieter, but I don't know if that's just because I'm going deaf or if it's because of Mount Chiliad. One night I decided to investigate the mount. I know that there's a ghost on top of one of the mountains, but Mount Chiliad has always seemed off to me. I went to the top and the screaming stopped. I don't understand why, since it was day and there was nothing there. I started waiting. I waited until I saw something, anything, but nothing came, so I just assumed that it was my television. So I turned it off and I went to bed. I was woken up in the middle of the night with the same screaming I heard from the game. I sit up and look at my TV, but it was off. At least for a few seconds, before it turns back on and loads up GTA. As this happens, I see my character walking on top of Mount Chiliad, so I go to grab my controller, but he makes a beeline for the edge and jumps straight off. As he hits the ground, the TV turns off and the screaming stops again. When I wake up, my mom was shaking me. She was yelling at me and my alarm was going off, but I couldn't hear any of it. And at 3, the scariest Easter egg. For this Easter egg, you need an unupdated version of the PS3 Grand Theft Auto 5 with 100% completion. Trevor needs to be killed, and once you've done this, switch to Franklin and go to the top of Mount Chiliad at 3 AM on a stormy night. Usually this will make a normal UFO appear. However, if you teleport inside of it using a mod or glitch of some sort, the UFO won't disappear if you get too close. Inside the UFO will just be the UFO's textures reversed. When inside, make sure you spawn a Sanchez using the in-game cheat codes. Once it spawns, get on it and drive around the ship until you find a white dot. Once you find it, drive towards it. If you do this at the right angle, you'll end up driving onto an invisible platform over the world where you can drive around. After a few seconds of driving around, you'll hear a loud scream, as if someone was sitting right next to your ear. It doesn't even stop there, because if you get off your bike, you'll start falling through the platform and you won't equip a parachute. And when you eventually hit the ground, the screen will go black. No wasted screen, no loading screen, it will just stay black as the screaming plays until you unplug your TV. And 2, the truth about Fort Zancudo, Part 1. I was having an ordinary GTA 5 online session with my friend. The typical stuff, you know? Killing cops, getting 5 stars, strip club, VIP work, invading the military base. But it's that last one where it got weird. My friend and I were in Fort Zancudo, in the tower you can get in from the ground next to the airstrip, and we were role-playing that we were gathering intel and getting rid of the evidence. We were shooting at monitors when all of a sudden, from the tower, we see a door open, but it was hidden in the airstrip. Us shooting at the monitor opened a secret area in the military base. Us, freaking out, obviously charged down to the tower to get to this door, thinking that it was an Easter egg left by Rockstar. As we get out, my friend gets killed by a tank, but I manage with great effort to evade it and make it to the door. When I walk through another door, my game freezes, and when it fixed itself, I found myself in a lab with empty stasis tubes and surgical desks everywhere. At this point, my phone dies and I lose contact with my friend. I go to plug it in, and as I do, the lights in game go red, and that's when the empty stasis tubes open and the fog inside them disperses. Creatures start to fall out of these tubes. They're oddly shaped, like nothing I've seen in game, and they're gray. Aliens. When I say aliens, I don't mean like the alien costumes you can buy or use in director mode. These things don't even have models in the in-game files. I checked. Finally, in at number 1, the truth about Fort Zancudo, part 2. As I gather my thoughts on what I'm seeing, they start to get up. Oh great, they start approaching me. I go to equip my MG Mark II and it's not allowing me to equip items. I try to run but my character is frozen. As I lose all hope and accept my fate, my character pulls out his heavy pistol Mark II and aims it at his head. He shoots. As I respawn, my phone comes back to life and I get a call from my friend. He asked what happened and if I found the glitch spot, because as soon as that door closed it had said I chose the easy way out. I tried to explain, but he didn't believe me. To him, no time had passed. We continue on with our session, avoiding the fort, and instead we hop on a public session and mess with some fools and do some of the VIP work you can only do in public sessions. We get in his buzzard and my character climbs in the back. He doesn't get in though. He instead climbs higher into the blades of the buzzard and dies. My friend and I are laughing hard because we found it hilarious, and we count it as a glitch and move on. It wasn't. This video is already getting hella long, so if you want to read the rest of this, check out the links in the description. We have all the links that I could provide. They're down there. There we have it, friends, the top 10 scary Grand Theft Auto 5 creepypastas. Which one was your favorite on this list, and which ones did I miss? Be sure you let me know down below, and on your way down, be sure you hit like and subscribe for daily gaming content, and ring that bell to join the clan and level up. Thank you all so much for watching. I have been and shall remain Connor Monroe, and I'll see you in another video.